Today, we are going to discuss the frog skeletal system, a Rana vitigera species. We are going to give you an overview of the skeletal system of a frog at its dorsal view. Here, we have the premaxilia, a bone in front of the frog, which is for the preparation of the maxilla. In here, we have the maxilla, which consists of the maxillary teeth. At its center, we have the sphenoid, where atlas can be seen at its back. The atlas is the very first vertebra, which doesn't have any curvature. At this point, we have the orbit, or the eye socket. In this part, we have the frontoparietal, where median dorsal suture can be found. The median dorsal suture is an immovable suture. In here, we have the suprascapula, or the shoulder blades. This part is called the typical trunk vertebra. The V-shaped part is called the sacral vertebra. And in here, we have the urostyle, the tail or the part of the vertebral column at the last part. The diamond-shaped part is called the ilium. And in here, we have the ischium. At this point, we have the phalanges. The palm are called metacarpals, and the wrists are called carpals. In here, we have the radioulna. The radius aligns with the thumb, and the outer part is called the ulna. The humerus is the upper arm of the frog. In here, we have the femur, or the upper leg bone. In here, we have the tibiofibula. The tibia forms the shin, while the fibula is the outer part. The phalanges are the lower extremities of the toes. The metatarsals are the soles of the feet. And in here we have the tarsals. The astragalus is the one aligned in the thumbs of the phalanges. And the calcaneum is the outer part of the tarsals. And the last part is the calcar, the extra toe of the frog. And that consists of the overview of the skeletal system at its dorsal vertebral column at its dorsal view. First, we have the atlas, the first vertebra. The second to the 8th vertebrae is called the typical vertebrae. In here, we have the transverse process. The neural spine are the bones protruding upwards. And the post-zygapophysis is the lower curvature of each vertebra. The sacral vertebra is the 9th vertebra, a flat bone. And in here, we have the urostyle, the 10th vertebra. And that consists the vertebral column at its dorsal view, the atlas. In here, we have the neural spine. At this point, we have the neural arc. In here, we have the post-zygapophysis. In this canal, we have the neural canal, the passageway of the nerve of the frog. In here, we have the concavity for articulation with the occipital condyle. And in here, we have the centrum. And that consists the atlas of the frog. The typical vertebra. In here, we have the neural spine, the post-zygapophysis, the transverse process, the pre-zygapophysis, the neural canal, and the centrum. And that consists the typical vertebra. Sacral vertebra. In here we have the pre-zygapophysis. At this point we have the neural arc, the transverse process, the neural canal in here, and the prominence of the centrum. And that consists the sacral vertebra. The urostyle. In here we have the neural canal, the middle hole. In here we have the foramen for the exit of the 10th spinal nerve. The flat bone in the dorsal part is called the keel. The centrum is the line of the center below the concavities. And the concavities are the two holes which is used for the articulation with sacral vertebra, and that consists the urostyle. Next, we have the skull at its dorsal view. Here we can see the premaxillae, and in here we can see maxillae, which compose the maxillary teeth. The flat bone nearly triangular at shape is called the nasal bone, and in here we have the sphenoid. The circular part is called the eye socket or the orbit, and in here we have the frontoparietal, which consists of the median dorsal suture, the line in here. The squamosal is the cheekbone, and the parotid can be found in here, which connects the squamosal and the frontoparietal bone. The quadratojugal is the sword-like shaped structure of the bone. In here we have the exoccipital, the outer bone of the base of the frontoparietal bone. In here we have the occipital condyle, the lower protruding bone at the end of the frontoparietal bone. And last, the foramen magnum, which is the passageway of nerve from brain. And that consists the skull at its dorsal view. At its ventral view. At this view, we have 6 bones, which can also be seen at the dorsal view, namely the premaxilla, the maxilla, the eye socket or the orbit, the quadratojugal, which is sword-like in shape, the occipital condyle, and the foramen magnum, which is the passageway of nerve from the brain. In here, we have the premaxillary teeth, which is below the premaxilla. Maxillary teeth here, which is also below the maxilla. Vomer is the bone below the nasal, which is also connected to the vomerine teeth. The vomerine teeth is also below the nasal bone. The palatine is the sharp teeth-like structure, and the bone which is prominent here is the pharynx sphenoid, a dagger-like shaped bone. And in here, we have the pterygoid, the C-shaped bone. And that consists the ventral view of the skull. The lower jaw at the dorsal view. In here, we have the mentomaxillian. At this point, we have the dentary, as you can see in this figure. And in here, we have the angulosplenial, the one in curvature shape at the bottom, as you can see in here. And that consists the lower jaw at the dorsal view, the hyoid apparatus at its ventral view. In here, we have the anterior cornu, the upper cornu. In here, we have the aliary process, which can easily be determined because it has a hump. In here, we have the body. Here, we have the posterior cornu. And the lower part is called the thyroid process. And that consists the hyoid apparatus at its ventral view. The pectoral girdle. In here, we have the episternum, and in this part, we have the omosternum. The line in here is called the clavicle, and the part in here is called the scapula. The thinner part is called the suprascapula, which is the shoulder blades. The glenoid fossa is the opening where the humerus is attached, and the opening of the coracoid is called the fenestra, the space in here. The coracoid, which is in here, is connected to the middle and forms the glenoid fossa. And the epicoracoid is the middle part of the two coracoids. The mesosternum is the part in here, and the xiphisternum is the last part, and that consists the pectoral girdle, pelvic girdle at its lateral view. In here we have the ilium. At this point we have the acetabulum, which receives the femur. And here we have the ischium, the inner part of the ischiac symphysis. And the ischiac symphysis can be found in here. The pubis is the inner part of the pubic symphysis. And the pubic symphysis is the curvature and the point of the ilium. Here. And that consists the pelvic girdle at its lateral limb. Here we have the head, the humerus, the deltoid ridge, the condyle, the radio-ulna, wherein the radio is aligned to the thumb, the inner part, and the ulna, which is for the outer part, the longitudinal groove, which is the indentation between two bones and point of connection, the centrale, the ordinary carpals, the radiale, the ulnare, the metacarpals, and the fingers, which is called the phalanges. And that consists the forelimb, the hind limb. Here we have the head of the femur. The femur is the thigh bone. The fibula is the outer part and the tibia is the inner part. The calcaneum is the fibularia is the inner part, and the astragalus or the tibiale is the outer part. In here we have the ordinary tarsals, and the calcar is the extra toe aligned to the astragalus. In here we have the metatarsals and the phalanges. And that consists the hind limb. As we end this discussion about the skeletal system of the frog, I hope you learned a lot. Thank you very much.